Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be covering a build that is near and dear to my heart. This is the ILLITHID build. It is a Dex Necromancer, and I can confidently say that I've been doing it longer than anybody because Black Priest got server first when Necromancy launched. We cleared the boss first, and I was the first person to get Necromancy to level 100. And so I really enjoy this build. I've been playing it ever since, and of all my characters that I play, I definitely play this one the most. And I'll explain, if you haven't seen these videos before, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the build, give you some tips, give you the layout, and then I'm going to go through a tier list and I'm going to break down every aspect of the character, what it's good at, what it's bad at, and I hope that you guys enjoy and I hope you guys learn something. Let's go ahead and get started. So this is a min height Shiva, full Shiva. One pro tip, if you really want to min-max this, you start it at max height and then you shrink it down and you can actually get a little bit shorter than this. You get 2 additional attribute points. As a little thing, it's actually not that expensive if you can find a good alchemist, but that's some advanced stuff. You don't need to do that right now. Your weight is lean, right? This character is very flexible. So the way I look at the fat scale, lean is ratty with a dagger, and the fatter you go, you can even play this stout, right? You can play this if you want more health. Your mana would go up a little bit. You can play it stout, or you can go fat, or you can go bulging. And the fatter you go, the more mana you get, and the more team fight oriented you are. Right? The leaner you are, the faster you are, the more ratty you are, the more like skirmishy you are. It's really, really fun to play a ground fighting DexMage. So strength at 28, so you can use daggers. Dexterity maxed out. Constitution, you can lower this a little bit depending on what your playstyle is. I typically run around 150 health so I can have more mana. I feel that mana is very constricted on this build. It really is your lifeline, and knowing when and how to use it is super important. Developing that game sense is super important. So, one thing that I can recommend when you're looking for jewelry, your rings, you just want the biggest stat sticks possible. And it's very flexible where you can pull from almost anything. You don't want to dip below 28 strength, but everything else you can kind of pull from and add to. You want raw dexterity, you want raw intellect if you can get it. That would be perfect, but just any stats as much as you can get. You can get a really good affordable golden ring on the auction house that has like 7 or 8 stats for dirt cheap, and that just really helps round your character out, adds some much needed attribute points that you definitely want, right? You'll notice the combat speed is 448. You're faster than even a stout Vila at lean. You are so fucking fast, nobody can touch you. Nobody can touch you. If you don't want to get caught, you're not going to get caught. It's great. It just feels so good. You are a speed demon. Armor weight is really high. You'll notice that I have armor weight when I get to the stats. Armor training is maxed, and I have 1 point in heavy armor training so that I can get the free primaries that come with just popping the book. And the reason is tower shields are meta, and I'll talk about it when I get to the tips, but tower shields are about to get nerfed. You're about to need people are saying that they might double the weight on tower shields. That's fine. You still want to use a tower shield. Tower shields are fantastic for many, many reasons, and I'll talk about it when I get to tips, but just know that the armor weight is pretty high. So look at the action skills and professions. We've got Necromancy at 92, Ritualism at 92. Yes, this character has Ritualism. This is not a noob-friendly build because Ritualism is one of the most expensive and time-consuming and worst grinds in the game. But it's pretty cool. You can turn any creature in the game into an undead servant of yourself. It's fantastic. You just 1 point in Ritualism lets you summon anything. The way Ritualism works is the higher the skill level, the more health the creature has. I think it's like 2 or 4% buff for every point in Ritualism. So at level 1, you summon creatures that'll die in 1 or 2 hits. It's really not worth it. You'd be better off butchering the carcass and taking the resources. But at a higher level of Ritualism, you can have some decent pets. You've heard me talk shit on Ritualism in the past. I still think it's pretty bad, but people have said that they're going to get buffs. They're going to add undead skills, right? But it is decent. For 92 points, it's pretty good because you can have a pet. You can get an undead Mulva that has hundreds of HP, plus a troll or a tar dog or even a Tuplock, right? If you don't know what a Tuplock is, I'm not going to ruin it for you, but you should try and figure that out. That's a really cool quest that you can give yourself, is go figure out how to make the best Tuplock in the game, right? It's an adventure, right? And I sell ritualism spreadsheets if you're interested, but I'll never make a video giving you the step-by-step guide on how to ruin your experience. So, armor training at 100, like I already talked about, blocking at 100, you just need it. I've gone back and forth on blocking on a fat mage with a tower shield that can't get away, that's relying on their shield to do the equipment hits. I don't think blocking is needed, but on a dex mage like this, you can really keep yourself up if you have blocking leveled up. Right, so I really do like blocking a lot. Combat maneuvering at 100, obviously. Controlled riding at 50 and mounted magery at 50. When elementalism comes out, these are two things that I would dump. I'm going to be a full ground mage on all of my characters, actually. I'm even dumping it on my obese fat mage to do elementalism. It is going to be extremely fun because this character is very fast. This is one of the fastest builds in the game, and on foot, you can cast while walking with elementalism. So when you're future proofing this build, if you might be watching this in the future, dump the mounted skills, get some elementalism. You might want to dump some other things. I don't even know what I would dump. Maybe dump ritualism, and get more elementalism depending on how good it is. Use your best judgment, right? Um, Spiritism at 90. Holy smokes, it's fun. Using the laser beam to kill horses and stuff like that, it is fantastic. That might be something that you could consider dropping for elementalism. But right now, Spiritism, super fun. Your mental proj, longest reach in the game. It's literally your sniper rifle. I think it's great. I think it's super fun. It's another really expensive build. This is not beginner friendly. This is very expensive to get all of this stuff online, right? Footies talk about, oh, my kit is so expensive and mages can go out and T-lash for just some copperman and kill me. Motherfucker, you don't know what it's like to, to get your mage fully built out, right? So professions. You have to do armor training because it's a mage. I've included some armor kits down here below that kind of show like things you can do that are just kind of like run-of-the-mill average everyday stuff. You know, there's stuff even above this, right? If you get your Panzer scales and stuff like that, you can get even pricier, but the stuff that I'm showing here is generally the best like everyday stuff. You know, horn scale silk, horn scale guard fur is very affordable. You can wear it basically every single day. Make sure you get yourself a ranger book as fast as you can. Read that up and learn that. Just get that ball rolling. I have 100 scribing. Scribing is another really expensive thing to level up, but god damn, it's awesome. You can just buy the book for cheap. Books are like 15 gold, takes you to level 70, but from level 70 to 100, you got to grind it out, and it costs like 2,500 gold at least to get to max level. So, but when new content drops, right, I had scribing in the Necro dungeon every day, filling up lexicons. I made insane money doing that. Insane money. Textile lore for your silk. Just generally, you want to be able to make your own armor. It's really important. You need to be able to a little tailor for yourself, right? Keep yourself up and running. I also have pet equipment crafting on here. They're going to add armor for Molvas and stuff like that. With ritualism, right? A lot of the big problem with ritualism is the creatures don't maintain the armor of their living components or counterparts. Sorry. So an undead Campodon sounds cool until you realize it has no natural armor and it dies. It takes 120, 150 damage from a longbow, so it just dies super quickly. But pet armor in the future, you'll be able to craft that, throw it on your pet. I wouldn't go too heavy into it right now. Play the game for the way it is today, obviously. But looking long term, pet equipment crafting is something that kind of goes hand in hand. You can already make armor, so you can also make armor for your pets. It really would up the quality of ritualism. It's a big buff that is needed for ritualism. Okay. Some tips, some basic tips. When you're playing this character, positioning is everything. Everything relies on your positioning. You should always be thinking, am I in the right place? That is priority number one. I don't care if your teammate is about to fall over dead if you don't heal him. You need to position first. If a footy can get to you in under 2 seconds and hit you, you are way too close. Way too close. And playing mage, it's overwhelming for a lot of new players. There's a lot going on, and you don't know the flow of combat, and it can be pretty big learning curve, right, for a lot of players. So the first and foremost, you need to be thinking about positioning. It took me way too long to realize that positioning was the most important thing in the game. So always, always, always keep that in mind, right? Lean versus fat, I already talked about it a little bit. The fatter you go, the more team fight friendly you are. You do slow down, but you're still pretty fast. If you go even anything above lean, you're going to be slower than a stout DexMage, so you won't be able to outrun them. But if your positioning is good, you'll be able to zone them better than most. And then if your parrying and your blocking is good, you can just peel for yourself and then ask a teammate to peel for you, right? So the fatter you go, the more reliant on your team you are for peeling off a dex footy, right? Toggling your shield, right? You want to run a standard mage setup, but also like the beefiest tower shield that you can put. Get a tongue steel or a steel tower shield on your back, the biggest that you can afford to wear, and then toggle it on and off. There's no animation for putting a tower shield on and off like there is for putting armor on, so you can just toggle it on, toggle it off, toggle on, toggle off. If it is your mana resource, if your shield is on your back, you are getting almost no mana back, right? And your mana was, like I already talked about, I guess that's the next step, managing your mana. It is your lifeline. Realize that your T-Lash hits for 40 damage. A footy has 200 health. That means you have to successfully T-Lash a footy 5 times to kill them. T-Lash costs 30 mana. 3 times 5, 150, you have 160 mana. To kill a footy outright, they have to not have reflect, and you need to land every single T-Lash successfully in a row without them bandaging or mitigating or potting or anything. So a lot of people say, oh, mages are so OP, right? Realize that you have to play this build flawlessly to have a lot of success. So managing your mana, knowing when to heal, when to be offensive is really, really important. Ritual pets, I talked about it a little bit. I can just go through a quick list of things that are really good. I also, like I said, I sell a ritualism spreadsheet. So if you're interested, hit me up on Discord. I can sell you a spreadsheet in game. I don't sell for real money. Don't say that. I only sell for gold. But I won't make a video spoiling the game. I very much recommend going out, learning to become a necromancer on your own, grinding the book on your own. Get out there, go do the dungeon, do experiments, figure out what makes a good pet and what doesn't, right? But if you're not that type of person, you don't have the time or you don't want to do the experiments, hit me up. I can help you out. But some really good ritual pets, the ogre in the picture here, the rat berserker, tar dogs, Solanos, obviously, and there's a couple other ones, but yeah, on to the next part. Tier list, right? Okay, shout out real quick. Shout out to ATC. He took all these photos, right? We did a photo shoot the other day. This character is actually me, right? I think that these photos came out great. He is an awesome in-game photographer. He's the man. Yeah, keep it up, dude. Keep it up. So we're not going to cover PvP. I always do it at the end. I don't know what's in the front. PvE. So let's assume this character is full build, right? You've got ritualism, you got all that stuff. It's pretty good for PvE. Daggers do a lot of damage to flesh, and it really depends on what you're doing. If you're going to fight Rysars, you got to be good at parrying. You got to know how to kill them pretty easily. But if you're doing basically anything else, you can crush it. You can't solo trolls, so it's not like S tier. You can't like go take a turtle and solo a troll. You don't, undead turtles don't maintain the armor of their living counterparts, so it's not anywhere near good enough to do that. But you can slice up pretty much everything. I'd say that it's B tier. Yeah, it's B tier. You have a decent pet, it can really help you grind up some clade. Fun. Like I said, this is my favorite build. Favorite build in the game. I have more fun playing this in a ground team fight where you're healing. You get a T-Lash in, you secure kills with you're basically the kill securer. If you don't know your role in a team fight, right? Your role is to either open with the T-Lash to get somebody low so your other footies can follow up or other mages can follow up, or maybe you're just group T-Lashing a target. And then you're healing, you're zoning. You should use your dagger as a last resort, right? A lot of Dirty would laugh because every DexMage that I know goes through a phase where they just want to use their dagger, and they just play like they're a footy and they don't even have magic because they just want to use their dagger so much, because daggers can be really, really fun to use. But your role in a team fight is to secure kills or create opportunities, and then also save your buddies, right? And position, position, position. It is so fun doing that, at least for me. I absolutely love it, right? My personal goal is to be the best mage in the game. So that's what I'm trying to do every day. Dueling, it's F tier. Nobody duels on mages. It's not very fun. 1vx. This is pretty good for 1vx. You currently have some of the only AoE in the game. You can Awe Surge 3 or 4 times. You can Miasma. You can zone with your pets. You can have big, beefy zoning pets, right? It has the serious potential to 1vx, right? I've done it before a couple times. It's a good time, and when you do, it's really fun. The limiting factor, you know what? I'm gonna bump it down. The limiting factor is your mana, right? You run out of mana. Let's say you're fighting 2 footies. You run out of mana. You're resorting to your pet and your dagger. By that point, your pet is probably dead, and you're in a dagger fight against footies. Maybe they're low because you ran out of mana. Hopefully, you used your mana effectively, and you can finish one off. But even if you do finish one off, you're now fighting another footy who's better than you at being a foot fighter, because his entire build is dedicated to it. So he has to play. He doesn't have to play as well as you. You have to play flawlessly to be able to get that win. It is possible. You can drag the fight out, get your mana back. You can death hand to kind of like reset fights, and it is possible, but it's very difficult. I will say that from the fun factor, when you succeed in 1vx, it feels amazing. It feels amazing. 1v1. Out in the open world, for killing somebody else, this is pretty good. You still have enough mounted magery to kill a horse. Granted, it is difficult. You're not going to be able to kill other mounted mages. Horses, mounted archers will probably shred you before you can kill them. You have the potential to kill mounted other horses. That is one downside of this build. Is killing horses is a little difficult. But when the fight progresses to the ground, almost nobody is your equal. It is extremely hard to catch you, right? You were the fastest build in the game, like the fastest popular build in the game at least. And you have healing, you have magic, you have hit scan T-Lash, you have death hand. You have so many tools in your toolbox for what you're trying to achieve, and you can really tailor your playstyle to whoever your opponent is, right? Very simple. Skill cap. I'll put this in D tier. This is, like I said, this is not a beginner friendly character. There's a lot of nuance to playing a mage. People think it's super easy. It's really difficult if you want to, especially if you want to play this solo. We'll talk about solo here as well. This is probably D tier. It's below average for playing solo, right? There's a lot of nuance to playing mage, like I was saying, where if you're out of position, you die. Your pets are in this build are squishy because they're ritualism pets. It takes a long time to get these things trained back up. It's expensive, and you're going to have a lot of learning curve here where you're going to die, and you're going to die a lot. And as long as you're learning every time, it's not bad. If you're the type of person who doesn't reflect and learn from their mistakes, it's going to be difficult. But you're the type of person watching a tier or a build guide video, so I doubt you fall into that category. Okay, so team fights, absolute S tier. So potent, right? Like I said, the fatter you get, the even better you get. But even a lean DexMage provides so much value to a team fight. It's unreal, right? The AoE, right? Especially if you have a human on your team that can do the war cry. You'll see it in my epic moments video. We're fighting North Order. I call for the human war cry. Ganondorf runs over. He shouts it. I can just Awe Surge through everybody, my team included, and I just pepper the enemy team for 40 damage a shot. It's like AoE outburst. everybody's getting hit for 30 to 40 damage. It's fucking fantastic. So good, so fun. Then you rotate into the back, you can heal, you can do whatever you want in a team fight. You can be hyper aggressive, you can be hyper defensive, you can just make plays and win fights for your team by yourself. It's such a fun, rewarding feeling. I absolutely love it. Defense. This is really good. Just your speed alone, right? There's more than just damage mitigation through armor. Damage mitigated by speed is another form of healing. If you never had to cast the heal to begin with, it's still value. Your action economy is fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. There's been so many times where I'm in a team fight and a footy will turn to run towards me, and I'll just, my positioning's good, so they'll see me turn, backpedal, do whatever I need to do, zone them out, and they'll go back to the footy. So I'm pulling people out of the fight, wasting their time. They get no value. My teammate gets relief. It's fantastic. There's almost no downside. Offense. I'll put this in. You know what? I'll put this in C tier because your AOE is situational. Your mana supply is very limited. Your dagger can hit really hard, but the more armor they have, you're praying for a weak spot. So there are some downsides. You're not a footy. You're not a Thursar with a two-handed maul. You're not going to be up there chunking for huge, huge, huge amounts of damage. And yeah, that is a downside of the build. You're not a footy, right? You also don't have longbows, so killing horses and stuff. Your offense is scuffed in that regard. Economy, it really depends on what you went. I'm just going to put this in C tier because you have a lot of different options, right? Like I suggested earlier, if you have scribing maxed out, you can make a ton of money doing scribing. Pet armor, if you know what you're doing and you're not crafting Incisium Guard for a crap, you can, and you know how to make decent horse armor or decent pet armor when that becomes a thing, you can definitely make a good amount of money there, right? But economy, I'll put kind of middle of the road. Uptime. You know what? This is a really good. I'm actually going to put this in S tier because you have every tool in the toolkit at your disposal all the time. And ritualism, even though when your pet dies it becomes a dead stat, it is such a cheap dead stat to take compared to taming. Where taming, you have creature control, advanced creature control. If you have taming, you also have 31 points in taming. If you have herding, that's even more points. When your pet dies on a tamer, it is brutal. 1/3 of your build goes offline. When your pet dies as a ritualist, 1/13 of your build goes offline, right? It's not a big deal. And you can do everything else just as effective. It is arguably the most online character you can play. You can always get value from your kit. Always, always, always. You can always be doing something in a fight. Action economy is huge. If you're standing around, you don't know what you're doing it wrong. Reflect, think, what should I be doing? What should I be doing? Positioning is number one. Healing my buddies that are in dire situations, number two, right? T-lashing and securing targets would be number three, right? So really good. This is also it's not on this list here, but from a team fight and a PvP perspective, this is a fantastic character to shot call with. What we typically do is we have a frontline shot caller who's calling low targets or focus targets, right? Sometimes I do that as well from the back. But from a positioning standpoint, seeing where the flanks are coming in, seeing what sides need healing, seeing who's dying, everything, just an overall situational awareness, you're the best, right? Maybe a mounted mage in the back that's sitting on a horse who maybe has a better vantage point than you can determine that better, but there's just something to be said about being on the ground. It's just more visceral, like you're more linked in, and yeah, from a shot calling perspective, if you're a shot caller and you enjoy playing mage, this is super good. Super, super fun. Crafting. I'll just put it in economy. I kind of touched on it already. Utility, like I said, S tier, just fantastic. And we're just going to put PvP in here and overall. Maybe I'm biased. This is my favorite build. This is the thing that I continuously want to log in and play every day. This is something that I'll probably never re-roll. I absolutely love playing this character, right? So, yeah, and that's that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have questions, hit me up in the comments. Make sure you vote on what you want to see next. Thanks.